Continued from the previous slide, we now have part B. Two cars leave from the same city at the same time and drive in the same direction. The table shows the distances traveled by each car. Which of the following statements is true? Each of the following statements below are referring to the relationship between the number of hours and the number of miles traveled for the red car and the white car. They are comparing them and seeing if they are proportional or not. So, to answer this question, to see which of the following statements is true, we should look at the miles traveled by the red car and the hours of travel and see if that relationship is proportional or not. And then we should look at the miles traveled by the white car and the hours traveled and see if that relationship is proportional or not. And once we have that information, we can then read each statement and see which one would be true. So first, let's look at the miles traveled by the red car compared to the hours of travel. In order to see if that relationship is proportional, the ratios of the numbers in the table have to be equivalent. So we're looking at each row with the miles again traveled by the red car and then the hours of travel. So we have 77 over 1, 122 over 2, 167 over 3, 212 over 4, and 257 over 5. We're looking at those ratios. But right away, even if we compare two of them, we can see that they're not equivalent. For example, if we take that first ratio of 77 over 1, that is not going to be equivalent to 122 over 2, which is 61 over 1. Or we can even compare, let's take the first row of 77 over 1, that first ratio, to maybe the third row of 167 over 3. They're not equivalent ratios. 167 over 3, even if I simplify, is 55.6 over 1. So they're not equivalent ratios in the table. So the relationship between the number of hours and the number of miles traveled for the red car is not proportional. So if we look at our choices, that automatically eliminates choice A because that's saying the relationship is proportional for the red car. And that automatically eliminates choice C because that's saying that both the red and white cars' miles traveled per hours traveled is proportional. And again, we know now that the relationship between the number of miles and that the red car traveled compared to the hours traveled is not proportional. Again, the red car is not proportional, that data. Now we have to do the same thing and we have to look at the data for the miles traveled by the white car. So that would be comparing the first and the third column. So that's looking at, again, the miles traveled by the white car compared to the hours of travel. So that's 55 over 1, 110 over 2, 165 over 3, 220 over 4, 275 over 5. And as we start to think of these ratios, of comparing these, we're going to start to see that they're equivalent. We have the first row, we have 55 over 1 is equal to 110 over 2, which equals to 165 over 3, which is equal to 220 over 4, which is equal to 275 over 5. If I simplify any of those ratios, they all simplify down to 55 over 1. They are all equivalent. So the miles traveled by the white car compared to the hours of travel is proportional. So that is the opposite of what we found with the red car. So again, they're not both proportional, but we have the white car is being proportional, that data for the white car. So that eliminates choice D because that says that both the red and the white cars is not proportional. So we want the statement where the relationship between the number of hours and the number of miles traveled for the white car is proportional, but for the red car is not proportional, which is exactly the statement for choice B.